Athene, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm a bit
Pleasure.
nervous, but excited.
Don't worry,
Great.
us too. No kidding.
Well, it's great to have you here for Time to Show Up. And we're going to kick off with just asking you if you could say something about your life course that brought you to this moment right now. So, obviously, not your whole life story, but what is the life course that brought you up to this moment where you thought this was the conversation you wanted or needed to be having?
Yes. So in short, I think I have been moving a lot from 12 till 18. I think roughly 4 countries, and also
Oh,
per country within the country, I've moved a lot. And also, I've moved schools a lot, switched schools a lot. And fast forward, I studied medicine, and now I feel stuck in my job. I feel um, yeah, overworked. I am doubting whether this job still works for me. So yeah, I think that's the short version. And
Okay.
yeah, I wanna show up in the world. So that's why I'm here.
And just to check, how long have you felt stuck, do you think?
Um, well, I think it started in the summer.
Okay.
I am well, not this summer. It started in the summer of last year, and I think it's what's also important to know is that I am a first-time mom of a now 4-year old, and I think that also added up because she has a hard time sleeping at night. And I think in those 4 years, she has not slept once through the night. I think I can count it
oh,
on my two hands. So I think lack of sleep and having a stressful job, I felt like I could not. I tried my best to keep on having the responsibility and showing up for the other patients, and in the meantime, I was taking care of everybody else and not taking care of
yeah.
me. So
Thank you. That's a helpful clarification.
And that's a lot to have on your plate as well. So thinking about today's conversation that we have together, what would feel like a successful outcome from this conversation for you?
mm, for today, I think I think clarity, or maybe just insights, like aha moments, or yeah, I don't think you're gonna fix it, but I do think certain conversations can be very helpful into moving forward. So
Okay, so clarity, insights, and then maybe uncovering. When you're saying clarity, is there something that you feel like would need some focus on that needs uncovering? If it's something
um,
about, yeah.
yeah, I think with my job, I'm a general practitioner, and I'm now at this point. I feel like I don't want to be anymore, because I feel like I cannot be for the patient, for my patients.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'm now doubting whether this is something I need to keep on doing. But I also know that if you are in the wrong headspace, you shouldn't make such big decisions. So that's
Okay,
it.
cool.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so before we get into the structured deep inquiry bit of the interview, I just want to kind of let you know that what we're aiming to do is to actually answer those questions that you have, to dig beneath the surface and see
Yeah.
if we can open up something that you might be unaware of, and that might feel a little bit risky to go
Mhm.
there sometimes,
Mhm.
and so we just want to check with you that you understand that that's like that we're going to be digging a little bit and that we only go as far as you'd like to go, but it can be
Yes.
helpful to step into the unknown a little bit with us, but also to say, that's not quite where I want to go
Yeah.
right now.
Yes.
Yeah? Great.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Well, we're all on board for part two.
All right. So thinking about the clarity and the insight and medicine and showing up in the world and sleep deprivation, there's a lot going on, a lot of change. And you mentioned already about not making big decisions where when you're in a headspace where maybe you haven't had the sleep that you need, or you may be having taken on too much and there's not much in the reserves. That's what I'm imagining in your situation.
Yes.
When you're saying about not being able to be there for patients and there being a sense of you having to take on a lot of work, thinking about the future, just kind of the next few years, if your daughter isn't sleeping so well, is there a short-term need that you have that's unmet that you would like to be able to meet in terms of the kind of the queries that you've got around clarity and next steps? Does it feel like something that you'd like to put on pause, the GP practice, in order to do something else? Or does it feel like you need something more immediate to kind of tether you to a space where you've got a different headspace, where you're sleeping better, where you can then make decisions? I don't know if that's clear as a question.
Not fully, to be honest.
Okay. I'll restate it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I'm sort of thinking out loud. So my thinking is do you, when you say you want clarity and insights, do you feel like what you need is a moment now where you can actually build in some more space for you to sleep and the rest of it, so that at a latter time you can think about your career and where you want to go? Or is it that you want to think about these bigger career changes now? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Am I being very
that was clear. Yeah.
I do get the question. I do get it. Well, I'm as my impatient side of me wants it now. Wants to think about the big picture now. But I do think now at this moment I just need I need to sleep. This is just a basic need. I need to sleep. After that, I can think about the really big picture. Having said that, I also think that in where I live, you have after school care, and the system is a bit flooded because they don't have enough workers for after school care. So that would mean I would have to cut my days short, and I am a substitute. So therefore, I don't have an option to cut my day short, because so now, for this period of time, I am being forced to look at something else, because I cannot I would not be able to fully work as a general practitioner now.
So it feels like there's two parallel things going on, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? So one of them is the systemic thing, right? That there's something systemic that you can't change, that's intruding, right, on like what would otherwise happen. You're not getting, there's not enough support.
Yeah.
But you also said stuck.
Yeah.
Are they separate things, right? So are they, are they separate, or is one provoking the other?
They're actually separate things. If I think back to my my career, like becoming a GP, there were several moments when I did med school where I was doubting whether to do it. And in those moments, I confined and I talked to the people closest to me, and they were like, yeah, but you can do it. Just don't give up. It was a setback. And maybe I am a very, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I can do it. And I kept on pushing through. And then there was the next thing. I wanted to be a surgeon. And I had a very honest talk with a colleague of mine. I wanted to be a urologist. And then they said, you know what, to be honest with you, you're a bit older than the med students that graduate. And we don't want to be rude, but you are a girl of color and you are a woman. So they are thinking you would like to get babies very soon, and that would cost the program money. And so he advised me to then do a PhD, and I thanked for that because I'm not that type. I considered going to Germany for it, and then I got some German CDs, and I had a headache, and I was like, no, this is not my thing. And I didn't fully know where I wanted to go because urology is a very small, it's a very small area of the body, and I liked it because you could become a perfection. You could perfect it. It was tiny, and I liked the machinery. You could operate with it like. I thought I just loved it. And then I was forced to look like, okay, what am I going to do then? And there was a field of urology which I didn't like, and that was that you had very short moments with your patients. And that would lead to patients coming sometimes several times before you would really know what their question was or what it really was that was bothering them if you couldn't explain why they were there with their urological problem. And then somebody said, hey, but if you like that, the patient interaction and to know the person behind the patient, how about family medicine? And then I went there and I liked it. I thought it was quite overwhelming because it was, you needed to know a little about a lot, but you needed to know the red flags in a lot of things. And I have found myself sometimes getting lost in it because then I saw a patient and I would go home and then I would be like, oh, but the patient might be having this. This could also be in my differential diagnosis. And I would look things up, and I think all of those things were fine before mommy life. But yeah, now it's becoming harder.
So much to unpack there, isn't there? So I'm wondering, in terms of, because one of the things that really, well, there's a couple of things that really struck me, but one of them around the urology is kind of this, you're talking about this small area that's kind of contained. You can rely on your perfectionism and attention to detail to really have precise interactions that can heal the patient, but also the quality of wanting to relate to the person behind the issue, the medical issue, the disease. But then also timing wise, what is it that you, in terms of your motivation, digging beneath the perfectionism, the contained element, the relationship aspect, when you were looking to do surgery, or at the times when you've had that question, is medicine right for me? What's the motivation that moved you into medicine, and what motivated you to keep going? Like, what's underneath the desire to do it?
I think the fact that I love to help people, and that kept me in the field. But then again, you can also say there are lots of things where you can help people. And I think I think it has to do with if you start something, you finish it. That's something my parents always taught me. Okay. And so when I discuss this with them, they're like, yeah, you started it, you finish it. And in the beginning I had a heavy heart, but I did it. Yeah.
So first of all, I want to say I feel badly that you were turned away from where your heart was taking you for issues of gender and race, which I think is really hard, because it feels like actually there was some clarity there for you, that you wanted. It had a direction, like Natalie was saying, of precision that general practice doesn't have. It's almost like the opposite thing,
it's
like family practice is wide, and then you wanted this thing, and it feels like your path got diverted at that stage against your will, and I'm sorry that happened to you, and maybe you've been trying to find your way back to something that spoke to you since then. And it feels like, yeah, we're still holding these two things, right? We're holding this circumstantial situation of being a mother with a young child and trying to manage local near issues.
Yes.
But also what I'm getting a sense of is a kind of an unhappiness in the role, that you'd be happier in a role that had more precision, the capacity to be a perfectionist, because it's hard to be a perfectionist. If you're a perfectionist as a GP, then you're going to be up all night with your diagnostic manual, aren't you? Like checking everything for everyone, and that's tough.
Yes.
Okay, but one more question back. Yeah. Part of what kept you, before urology and surgery and all of that stuff, part of what kept you on the medicine track, which it sounds like maybe you weren't 100% on board with, was this kind of, you started it, you finish it message. If that message hadn't been there, right? Say you had like the full freedom to opt out and do something else.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what it would have been?
Well, I think that's the big question, because I when I had this idea of maybe I'm gonna do something else, I just wanted to travel for a year. I told my mom I'm just gonna travel for a year, and my mom was like, "Are you crazy?
Right.
You're not gonna go travel." I'm talking about 20 years ago, when there was not such good internet. Just like, you're not gonna go travel. You just graduated. You're just gonna focus, and you're gonna go to school like everybody did. And I didn't come all this way for you to just do that. And I was like, yeah, but not all of them, but some of my colleagues, my fellow students, they would do that, some of them, and they would go to Australia, and I was like, wow. Or they would travel Europe, and they would work on the side, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna work on the side and do that and find my way, and maybe I will find what I need to do. And that was a no-go.
Yes. So you never really got the chance to discover what you wanted to do. You got on a path, and then
I was like,
you were on it.
yes.
Yeah, and when you get on that path, you finish that path according to that sort of family law, as it were.
I'm desperate to ask. Can I ask? I'm going to jump in. I know you've got a young one at home, so this might be completely impossible. But I want to ask it anyway. Is there any way that you could do even some small version of that self-discovery at some point in the next 6 to 12 months, even if it meant 1 week somewhere to yourself, to just turn everything off, not be in contact with any of your dependents, any of your family, any of your friends, go somewhere and just give yourself even just 1 week of time?
I did that. And,
how did it go?
I went for 6 days to Scotland a month ago. And I loved it. I had a camper van, and I just traveled, and along the way I had to do some things myself, and I thought it was very freeing. And my husband stayed at home with the little one, and I thought it was really good to do, because at some point before all of this happened, I was I would say I didn't have so much fears of new things. And at some point I would find myself being in a car and feeling anxious, which was, for me, was silly, because most of the people said like I just got my driver's license, and I would drive a big van, and I would just drive people around, and I could switch manual or automatic. It was no problem. And at some point it was so much. So when I went to Scotland, and I wasn't meeting my friend yet, just later, because she went to the wrong airport. Yeah. So I was forced in that moment to do it by myself, which I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And when I did it, yeah, it felt really good, and I really enjoyed it. And I, I really enjoyed it. And then I came back, and it felt like I regretted that I left because yeah, we had to go back into the rhythm, or the rhythm that we had, and my daughter was so scared of me leaving that I think the first week or two, she woke up even more than before, making sure that I was still there. So
Oh,
yeah, I thought
It
that
almost felt
was,
like you had to pay for it
yes,
somehow.
that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so yeah, I felt that I had more energy, like I was more tolerant and less agitated, especially towards my husband, for him, before. But so now I could roll with the punches a bit more. I had a bit more room. But yeah, it was really good. So I'd love to do it again. But then
it sounds liberating for
yeah,
that pocket of time and more spacious when you came back,
yeah,
like refueling yourself.
yes,
Does it make you a little bit of? Did it make you a little bit afraid though that there was like a cost to it?
yes, I was.
Yeah. I mean, this feels like very central in the sense that there's like a movement towards independence, liberation, freedom, making your own choices,
Yes,
right? And then on the other side, there's responsibility, looking after the family, and it's like
Duty.
you don't get to have both. And
no,
if you want to have that one, you're going to pay for it on the other side.
that's absolutely how it felt, because I was stressing out up to the flight to make enough food in the freezer. So so there was, so
Right.
yeah, and
Because you had to
cleaning
make sure they were
clothes
all
and everything. So yeah, so it
okay.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. But I also
It's a lot.
think my husband told me, you know what, you can forget about it. You don't have to do that. So he is like, he does give me that space. But at the same time, I do know that I feel like I'm not gonna take it, because I also know that he is then, I'm off going to have fun, and he is with my daughter, with our daughter, which is more challenging, of course, because there's only one parent, and I feel that makes me feel heavy. Then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try to make it as easy and as comforting for him, which is something I also struggle with my entire life, like making other people's life easier instead of my own. So yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, and it feels very much like a binary choice at the moment.
yes,
Yeah. Okay. So maybe one way we can start thinking about that as we carry on through is whether it is really binary, and whether there might be some wiggle room in there, because what you're describing, it's like the definition of stuckness, right? That there's a force that wants independence, a bit of play, a bit of self-discovery.
yeah,
There's another force that's all about responsibility, obligation, and family, and as
yeah,
soon as they start pulling, you're stuck, right? You're
yeah,
stretched in both directions. Yeah.
And I think even, and I don't know, like, but the responsibility to your parents to continue down the path of medicine and to not take a break after your studies, and then to the family. And it's one thing that I noticed in the way you described it about this 1 week away, is that you were there to play.
yeah,
When you described it, I mean, play may well be an aspect of it, but it sounds to me like it's almost like there's very little oxygen in the room, and you have to open the door to step out, to take a few deep breaths, to have the energy to come back in. And that's like, my sense is that it's not just about play, but it's also about survival and flourishing and being able to step into your life with greater presence. And that actually when you step back in, you're able, you mentioned your relationship with your husband was, you had more energy to kind of bring into it, right? Because you're not so completely dedicated with all of your energy to making other people's lives easier. It's also that there's more left for you as well. Yeah. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the binary then. Do you want to lead this bit on Binary equations.
Binary equations, yes. So here's what I'm thinking, right? That you have a very strong sense of obligation. Yeah, so there was a very strong sense of obligation. There's a few examples already, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? But so first of all, there's an obligation to finish the medical training, even though maybe you were a bit ambivalent about that, because that's what you do, right? You start something, you finish it. There's the obligation to put the food in the fridge, as it were. There's the obligation to go, and I'm not saying these are bad things, but the obligation to go home and make sure that you got it right with these patients, right? And it feels like there's so much obligation that there's very little freedom for that kind of independent sense. Almost like the main job becomes you have to squish yourself, right? Because of all of these obligations. And what it reminds me of a little bit is this idea of like doing a digital detox, which I know sounds like a weird kind of lateral place to go, but it's like, well, put your phone away for a week, right? But then that question is, well, what happens when you go back home after the week, right? You just go back to normal. So I'm wondering, and I think this might feel risky, because I feel like to not meet the obligations as you hold them, because I think you're probably a perfectionist as well. You mentioned something about that. Will feel like you're failing in your duties, right? But I wonder if there were any risks that you could take, or any places where you don't have to be as much obliged. So you don't have to go to Scotland and take a week, but can you leave something undone, leave something with your husband, leave something done less well?
Like 80% instead of 110%.
Yes, yeah. So that you can start to breathe some air into where your desire is and where your direction of travel might be. Because it sounds like you know where you're stuck. When you're stuck, it's easy to fall into obligation because you know what all those rules are. You know what you're supposed to do. But when you fill all that space, how are you supposed to know or become aware of another motivation that tells you the direction that you might want to go in? Does that make sense? Like, it's like the volume gets turned down on that. Would you be open to playing with the idea of how obliged you are to everything?
Well,
Just a little question. Just a little one.
well, there are some things I feel really obliged to. And I think when it comes to like with patients, I really want there to be as little as possible room for errors, because I think you're working with people. So the moment I see a patient, I'm like, okay, so if there is no alarming signals, I can relax. But if I hear something and I'm like, and then I look in their history and I see, that could be a link, then I'm like, ding, 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 ding. I need to. So, yeah. So there,
let's not turn off that alarm.
No.
Yeah. That's a useful alarm.
No. I think I would have loved to just also be able to relax and not be stressed about the food. But somehow I just can't. I don't know why I can't. I just feel I have other areas. I'm really bad in administrative things.
Okay.
And
when you say bad, do you outsource that, or is that something that you take on?
Well,
but
yes,
you struggle your way through.
I outsource it, and then they ask so many things of me, and then I still struggle with it. So I'm like, why am I paying you and I'm still struggling to do it. So so yeah, that's something yeah. And
Can I ask just a practical question around that? Is it sort of administration, like accountancy stuff, or is it more having some kind of assistant who helps you work through the admin stuff?
I think both. I have a accountant and I have an assistant that helps me work things through. But so I'm very perfectionist in my work, but towards myself I am not so much. So
Okay. Interesting.
yeah. So I
And can you give an example? Yeah.
an
In what way are you
example.
not perfect? Yeah.
My hair doesn't have to be fully done, so now it's also a bit fluffy. Yeah. So I'm not the if I make food, it doesn't have to. If I don't have some ingredient, I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna wing it. So those
You get
areas
creative.
are I don't mind, because I think it can also be a surprise how it ends up to be, or sometimes you do something less, or maybe I'm not the tidiest. And like also my doctor's bag would not be the tidiest, but I would know where everything is.
Uh-huh.
So I do think
This sounds good, though, in a way. I mean, are you saying this sounds like there's a bit of flexibility in looseness, that everything doesn't have to be
yeah. So I'm
control.
only perfectionistic in certain areas. Unfortunately, I find those areas very important, so they weigh much
Yeah.
more.
But you said something before. I just want to go back to when I said this thing about the food in the freezer or whatever, and you said I just can't.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what that is. Okay, so let's say if you see an alarm bell in a patient's file,
Yeah.
right? You just can't. Fair enough, right? That's a very clear,
Yeah.
joined up thing, right? But there was a sense before that it wasn't.
Yeah.
There's an area in which it's not. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I think my guy is a really bad cook. Really bad. And I think
Okay.
too, I would have loved to make it a bit easier for him. I think if I would be in his shoes, I would not want him to worry about me. But the other way around, I would be like, wouldn't it be nice if he would come home from a long day, stressful, whatnot, that he can just put the food out, to heat it up. Our daughter comes home, is missing her mom, is then a bit more whiny, and then he can just have some quality time playing with her without stressing out about the food, and then he can just cuddle with her whilst the food is heating up, and then they can set the table together. That's how I'm thinking. And I don't think I would be like, whether he is a bad cook or not, I don't think I would be able to let that go.
Can I ask what does your partner do?
He's a
And like what's
he's a psychotherapist.
okay.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And just for my, and this might be completely the wrong non-psychotherapeutic question, but I want to ask it. In terms of your hours, in terms of your when you start and you finish your days, are they quite similar in terms of the rhythm, in terms of your work hours, both of you?
Well, no, I would make longer hours because I would start before him, and I would come home later.
Okay.
So you're starting before him and you're coming home later, but you feel that you have to manage this part of the home life as well, because if you don't,
Yeah.
some needs won't be met with him and your daughter and with the food. It's like you're filling up.
It's crazy. I know.
What's
It's
Well, I
not
don't know.
crazy.
No. I know. I hear you say it, and I'm like, don't be silly. That I should not be silly
Okay.
about it. I hear it.
If you weren't being silly about it, what would you be doing differently?
I would come home and to him trying to make a meal.
Which might not be such a great meal. Okay, so the cost on that one is mainly that it might not be such a great meal, and that will maybe take him away from time with your daughter.
Yeah.
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 There is, and this is just like with my practical mind on, well, there's several things, but I think let's start with the practical, which is, I really don't enjoy cooking. I love eating, really don't like cooking because I've got too much shit going on and I can't be asked to add that to my list of things to do. And I don't have a kid. So I have it much easier than people that I know who have children and a family to look after. But one of the things I found helpful, which might be useful for you, is, and I don't know, you might have tried this already, but you know how you have these home delivery boxes where they also have like 5 days?
Yeah.
Is some sort of practical intervention like that useful? Have you tried something like that?
I was
How did it
so
go?
excited that it was there. So I was like, I'm going to give Patrick these boxes so he can do that. And it was, like for instance, like certain foods just ended up instead of rice, it was more like porridge. So, and yeah.
Right.
So it was a bit upsetting to me, and then I really tried to, you know what, honey, you tried, and I'm like always also like with simple things, just if you don't know, just keep it simple, some onions, some garlic, some salt, pepper, and it's fine. But I don't know, somehow it doesn't work, and so I think the food thing, I have tried that, and I think it's a very good tip, but it doesn't work for us. So I think for that I have accepted that part, and I also, I do think that he what we also are doing is that he's helping out with the simple things like steaming veggies or whatnot. They might be overcooked, but I don't mind that so much. So yeah.
Okay, so it's funny because Natalie, I think this is hopefully what makes us good about doing this together. She always goes for the practical. It's good for the underlying, and so it feels like that these two need to meet in a place, right?
Yeah.
The underlying issues and some kind of practical solution.
Yes.
And I feel like on the underlying issue side, okay, big picture, small picture. The big picture is that you need enough space to start to figure out where you're being drawn, where your heart motivation is, say, where you want, if this is provoking a sense, like, actually, I'm not even sure I want to be a GP anymore, and I don't want to make a quick decision, an impulsive decision about that. You said, perfect, right? Great. So how do you integrate some space to start to let the motivation grow? There are going to be some practical solutions to that, but there's also this I can't bit. So no, you can't ignore alarm signals to patient file. Yes, you can probably live with less good food some nights, or even forget the box, just get a Deliveroo in or an Uber Eats, 2 nights a week. There's the solution to that. But where you can say, I can, right? So I can drop or have less good some of these obligations so that I'm loosening up some space in my life to fan the flames of a direction, heat up this fire of a direction that I want to go in. And that's accepting, systemically, the childcare situation is not good. There's the sleep situation going on. But you don't have to do everything. And it feels like identifying, like, those, 3 things that you can unhook your obligation from and then find something else that gives you the kind of space that Scotland did, but at home. Yeah.
And I also wonder with your schedule, if there's the way to, do you ever schedule in like an hour to just go on a walk, leave your phone at home?
I find it really hard to do right now. It's this very silly, simple thing which I always advise, but I just find it hard to do. So I think...
What are the things stopping you in that moment when you're just like... I can't do this, or it's too hard to do?
I think myself, I stand up and I see all these half-done projects, whether it's the dishes or still picking up after our daughter or some other thing. It's and I'm like I think I want to do so many things. I'm feeling tired, so I'm a bit slower. And then at the end of the day, I don't do any. So, it's like, or hardly anything, or it's just touch part of it. And then, so, yeah. So it's
Let me ask you, okay, well, yeah, but I think I want to go one more layer down if we can. It's scary to arrive at the answer you're looking for, I think, too. So say you find that the answer is, I don't want to be a GP, I want to do this. Yeah. That's asking a big change of yourself, of your security, of your family situation, all of that stuff. And I wonder if there's a little bit of resistance also about finding out, because at least there's like stability there. You know what the rules are.
Yeah.
It's got a current situation.
Yeah. That actually, you start to light that fire, then it's going to be like, oh shit, like.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you have a point. I also think it's very scary, because this is now something I have known, and like I started med school now 20 years ago, and I've been in this like it's like a very different work environment, and you study for so long, and then I do feel the weight of oh my gosh, and now what? And or also like I am scared for the answer, if it's gonna be, I don't want to do it at all.
Yeah. Do you think you might be ready or not to be a little bit scared?
I'm ready.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's something I think maybe moving a bit fast, right? I think
also tell us if this is too fast, because we're just kind of diving straight in, so feel free to hit pause.
I would say don't in a way, I would say don't worry about what comes. Don't worry about the decision that comes next.
Yeah.
Okay? What you haven't been able to do is create the space to find out what that thing is, and the motivation and the desire that would start to lead you in that direction. So, instead of like figuring something out, something burns and leads you in a certain direction, right? And all of the circumstantial stuff pushes against that, but also the fear pushes against that. But if you were to say, okay, look, I don't have to see it through. I don't have to make any decisions, but I will allow space and play with the idea, that I can fantasize about it, play with the idea, imagine things, and that might make me feel afraid, but it'll also start to clarify a direction of pull, right? Like I'm being pulled in this direction. Yeah. Later you get to decide whether you're ready for that, whether it's possible. But until you kind of allow it to grow and allow it to get clear, it's going to feel stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I'm at now. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't it great? Like, isn't it great that you feel so stuck now that there's this stuff in your system that's saying to you, okay, Athene, like...
It's time.
Like, tip it.
Yeah.
Tip it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another question, isn't there?
I'm going to pause. Have you got?
No, I think if you've got that, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me check in with you first. How are you? How are you feel? Are you feeling more afraid or more excited, or a lot of both, or as stuck,
A
or
bit
what?
of both. But
Okay.
I don't want to run, so
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you don't. Okay, you don't have to run, but you can let your stuckness tell you what comes next. Right? Your stuckness is pushing you to make some kind of discovery. So I'm thinking, I'm just kind of looking at our schedule because we're completely off piste. But I think we can kind of move into this.
Yes.
If you want to become more clear about what it might be that would put a fire under you to clarify a direction for you, what do you think that you might be able to do, or what risks might you be able to take, or what practical steps might you be able to integrate in the very short term to start to create some space for you to find out that really important thing?
go for that walk in the forest. Yeah, I think having some proper me time to incorporate that in the day, and also exercising, because I have not been doing that in a while. Yeah. I love to dance, so I'd love to pick that up again.
So I was just about to ask if there was something that gives you pleasure in your body, like dancing, or
Yeah.
for some people it's yoga, whatever. But pleasure is really important, especially when you're talking about what pulls you
Yeah.
to come into that place of joy. Is there a dance practice that you gravitate towards that
Well, I
that
used to
you've done that
do
you miss?
Latin dances. But,
Oh.
yeah, so I love I loved it, and I still do, but the delivery of our daughter was a bit heavy, so I broke my tailbone, and I have like some
Oh.
yeah, so I have some pain. If I still go, if a family member has a party, I still go dancing and do all kinds of silly things, and then the next day I have to suffer even more.
Oh.
But I do think that if I would do it on a regular basis, eventually the pain becomes a bit less.
Would subside.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is appropriate to ask, but I've also got a chunky tailbone. So I won't ask about it often. Like, one of the things that really helped me was finding, I had to go through a few, but like to find an osteopath to help with the pain. But it sounds to me like that's something that you really love, that would be wonderful to make time for if there's space.
Yeah, I'm actually, I've been wanting to do it more and more this year, but I still haven't. So I'm writing it down.
What's stopping? Is it literally the scheduling? Is it literally just putting in your diary, time for Athene, I'm going to this dance class on this day? Is that is that the thing? If you wrote it down, would it happen?
I think I just have to look it up, and just it's the entire thing of looking it up, and then like getting like the shoes again, and just going, because I do know that if I the moment I tell somebody I'm gonna do it, so if I make a commitment, like I cannot say no. I feel too bad about it, so I'm like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. But it's just the entire process of enrolling myself in it that was the thing that was taking long, and then I would just go into really silly things like doubting whether it's gonna be this dancing school or that dancing school, and it's all not relevant.
Yeah, it's like getting caught in the weeds.
Yeah.
But let me go, I kind of want you to let go of that too, if you can, because I feel like this, once you start it, you have to finish it thing maybe isn't always true. And that while we would like to see you dancing and make a commitment to that, if it becomes a commitment that then has to be seen through in a kind of like a, like loosening, because that's tied in with the obligation as well, like the I must. And if you're going to make playful choices, you're going to have to give up some of those obligations, and you might have to challenge what I feel like is a very profound law inside you that comes from your family, which is you start, you finish. But sometimes you can start and not finish, you know.
And maybe there's a commitment there as well to, a commitment. You were saying about playful choices, a commitment to playful choices and to experimentation. I'm quite a perfectionist too, and I think one of the things that I find helpful sometimes is to say, okay, I'm going to experiment. This is an experimental choice, and the whole perfectionist goal is to gather data. That's where my attention is going to drive me.
That's a good one.
And so the question, it's quite useful as a reframe. I mean, play with it and see. Then it's like, all right, my goal, my obligation is to gather data. That's what I'm oriented towards. And then the secondary goal is, okay, is this school good for me? So you might say, I'm going to commit to 1 with this school. Do I love it? Do I feel joyful when I come out? Have I sweated as much as I want to, or whatever? And if the answer is, not really, then you go, okay, I've gathered data, next school, and you commit to 1.
Yeah.
And so the commitment to the data gathering, to the experimenting, is kind of stepping into that discovery, but also
not getting stuck there. So it's a commitment to that.
And then also because I'm all about the practical stuff. And it's so exciting that once you say that you're going to do the thing, you're going to do the thing. Because a lot of people don't have that power on their side, if you like. So I wonder also with the walk in the forest, I'm guessing that there's a forest that you mentioned that you have in mind.
Yeah, it's
is this somewhere that's close?
It's super close. It's super close.
Okay.
But lately I've just been going with my daughter there, and just then she just does her thing.
Okay. So time for yourself in the forest, even if it's just an hour on a weekend when your partner can take her, or she's got some other activity, to commit. You talk about like the committing doesn't seem like an issue, but maybe committing to a regular rhythm where on whatever day it is, on a Saturday morning from X till X, you're in the forest, your phone is off, and you just say, I'm just going to do this for a month. Again, like a research basis, you give yourself a limited time, you do it for a month, and you see what comes from it. And then in a month's time, you sit and you reflect, you're like, okay, how does this feel in terms of how much I can breathe energy into these other areas of commitment or letting things drop? Does that sound like, okay, so I'm also conscious of the obligation thing. Does that sound like a spacious, playful? Okay, you go with your reframe.
Well, let's check with the thing. Does that sound like a workable?
I think so. I will tell my husband that this is what I'm gonna do. And then I think he will also be like, oh, did you do it? And then I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. And then the moment I have it, then it should be fine. Yeah.
Good. Well, he sent you to talk to us, so you can pick up some of these obligations. Yeah. So I'm going to play with the obligation a little bit, right? So let's say there's like good obligation and pathological obligation, and that the idea is to like be a bit more doubtful about the pathological obligation. That's the stuff you can play around letting go, so you're opening up space for this other stuff. But I want to reframe obligation as obligation to yourself, and obligation to that fire, that potential fire that we've been talking about. Like, you are obligated in a way. Well, I'm saying it, right? I'm saying you could be obligated to nurturing what's going to come next for you in your life. And that does not mean that you have to renege on your obligations to others. Yeah. But the obligations to yourself do seem to have kind of, they've been a little bit elusive. Yeah, they've fallen down the list. So if there's a baby, right, and I'm not going to take away your obligations to your daughter either, obviously, right? But there's a baby in you too, a metaphorical one anyway. And you owe it to her to find out why you're feeling stuck and where you want to go next. And all of these little things, practical and non-practical, are about helping you find that out. Yeah, because there's some calling happening there. Yeah. So you just want to, and it's like when you go out into the woods, it's listening, right? And when you're dancing, it's listening too, because I can see it a little bit now. Like, I think it's not a tiny little flame in a bell jar, right? It's just like, you can feel it. Yeah. Could be exciting.
Very exciting.
Scary. Exciting. Yeah.
Feels like there's a lot of edge there, but a beautiful edge.
I think so.
Yeah, I feel quite moved at the moment. It's funny because it's one of these things where it's very easy to feel like, I think sometimes we paint ourselves into corners that other people don't have the same expectations. So the fact that your partner proposed to have a conversation as a starting point suggests to me that there's a desire from him as well to see you explore this, in which case one of the things that I think, because I do this quite a bit too, is like, don't assume that other people need you to do everything for them. I think there's a gender element in this. Like, I think, at least I can speak for myself, that we put these extra pressures and go, oh shit, if I don't look after this person, make sure that that this is done, that's done, that I am somehow not living up to this role that I'm supposed to live up to, or I'm a bad partner, mother, daughter, whatever it is. And I generally seem to find that in many of my male friends and family members, it's a different quality of obligation. I'm generalizing here a bit, but I've noticed a pattern. And so, yeah. And another pattern that I've noticed is that often, and I've had male mentors who've been phenomenally helpful in terms of reframing, saying things like, you only need to be 80% done or complete on something for it to be good enough. And I'm striving for 110 because I feel like if I don't hit that mark, all hell is going to break loose, or people will be disappointed, or like, you know, whatever it is. And so there's something really unpleasant but useful about asking, what does 80% look like in X situation or Y situation, especially for
rice that tastes like porridge, I think.
Yeah, it's like, if it tastes like porridge, all right, so the rice is maybe overcooked for 2-3 nights of the week. Yeah. Does it actually matter?
Or the rice cooker. There's a
there's
practical.
A fix for that.
Get a rice cooker. It does it on its own.
But there is something around also how much we take on in our general roles, gendered roles also, that I think is worth thinking about, which is not just stuck to gender, but there is an element there, I think, that might be worth experimenting with.
Absolutely. I think you absolutely have a point. And I also I think it's silly because also if this would be any other woman, I would also be like, relax, don't sweat it.
Right.
But then at the same time, I'm like, for myself, I'm like, oh my god, it's silly. I know, but it's
I mean, it's not silly. It's just kind of, we have such double standards. Yeah. It's like, you want to support, if this was a friend you're in conversation with instead of your own internal dialogue, it would be quite a different circumstance. I think the other thing as well, just before handing back over, maybe have you asked your husband, like, what do you think would be helpful for me to explore? What do you think I need more of in my life? Have you asked him that?
I have, and he said he misses the old me. I was super happy, and they'd call us happy, and he was lucky, and and I fully understand where he's coming from, and I miss that too. It's it's, I don't know, I think at some point it's just this heaviness which I didn't have, or if something would be a setback, I'd be like, yeah, screw it, we'll find another way. And now it's all, oh my god, and I'm like, I was never like that. So that's why he really wants that to come back. And also he's like, yeah, if you need to go salsa, I think he's super supportive, and I like that. But it's also at some point it's also me that has to go and do it. And maybe you're right, Aaron, like I'm scared for this new thing, or what is gonna be around the corner then, and that I then still don't do it, because then I get stuck in making the decision for instance, in this case, the salsa school, which is ridiculous. It is.
So the salsa school's practice, though, right? Yeah. So first of all, we're putting that decision on hold because you don't know what it is, and you get to find out, right, what you want to do about that decision. Yeah. The salsa school is a mini version, right? So it's like, I can say yes to that. If it doesn't work out, no big deal. Find another one. Make you ready.
Absolutely.
But I think the big challenge for you, I think probably over the next, if we're going to start to kind of integrate these sorts of things, is bearing the discomfort that's going to come with being less, dropping some of these, the gender, whether the gender roles or not, right? And start dropping the obligation, thinking what you have to do, being able to step out of something that you've already committed to, knowing that when you open up some space, you're letting something else go, and knowing that as that fire gets hotter, it's going to put you in a position that might be scary because there'll be a real choice to make. But I feel like the quality of the stuckness that you described says I'd actually rather be uncomfortable with fear than uncomfortable with stuckness. Uncomfortable with possibility rather than uncomfortable with stagnation.
I think also be kind to yourself. Why does it sound ridiculous? It doesn't sound ridiculous to me at all.
I think it is really scary.
Yeah.
I mean, you must know this as a GP. People are generally terrified of change.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people are just...
It's hard.
It really is the devil, Yeah, I mean, there's some kind of... I always call it the uncomfortable comfort. Like, it might not be comfortable, but you know it, right? So you kind of cover yourself in that. But then it's really uncomfortable. There's not comfort anymore, right? So it's like, okay, this is also uncomfortable, but it's a better uncomfortable.
I just want to really drop in a quote here that is one of my favourites. It's one of the shortest ones, so I can actually remember it because my short-term memory is not great. But it's there's an amazing writer called Anaïs, and she writes about this. And the quote that she had, it was actually a poem rather than a quote, but it says something like, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And I love that because it's that kind of, you sort of unfurling a little bit and you're just desperate to open into the sun, and it's frightening, and yet that's your deepest longing, is just to unfurl again. And it is painful, but it's the risk is worth it, I feel.
So I wonder if we can check with you about what you might be prepared to do differently, and what we've been talking to people and thinking that we might do follow-ups with people if you're up for it. But if we were to say, okay, well, let's just have a 20-minute chat in 6 weeks or 8 weeks time, what would you be able to integrate into your life from this conversation, do you think? What feels doable?
Yeah.
Definitely to Salsa school. I hope that's still on time because I know they usually start in August, September. I think that's absolutely something I'm gonna do. And I think if I look at it, it's all very feasible. But I'm gonna commit to the salsa and I think the 1 hour on a Saturday of Sunday walk. That's what I think.
Are there any pathological obligations that you might be able to
put down?
Yeah, put down or let go of a little bit?
Man, I really don't
Or
want
do
to
80%? No, I don't blame you.
Can you switch out one night of nice quality takeaway? Like maybe it's a ramen takeaway or a sushi takeaway or...
Yeah, I think we can definitely
What was that?
I'm gonna I think we're gonna I'm gonna make him I'm gonna ask him if he can also cook.
Yeah. And people do get better with practice. You know, it might take a month or 3 months of porridgey rice.
Yeah, I mean, with someone...
We're 10 plus years in.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes.
I might just rail that one.
I'm the cook in my house as well. But there are lots, when two people are tired, there's definitely takeaway, and we take advantage of that. And sometimes, if you can outsource some of that stuff to grab some time,
yeah,
it's worth it.
it's imperfect, but we're not striving for perfection. Striving for spaciousness and play and other things.
And listening in for that direction and being able to bear the fear of unbudding, blossoming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just to remind you, like with the salsa classes, the thing is to experiment. You don't have to sign up and then it's 6 weeks. Like if you go to one and you come away, you go, oh my God, that was dreadful. Really useful data, like great, useful data, shut that one down and do the next one. And if they've started and they say, oh no, our enrollment's closed, pass to them and call them up and just be like, look, this is my situation. Please, can I just come in for like, experimentation is the, okay, cool.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Would you be happy for us to have a call in a couple of months or something? See how you're getting on? That would be great. Yeah.
And you can let us know how these experiments have unfurled.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm really curious.
Me too.
Because I really feel like it's not just about carving out some extra time for yourself. It's about fertilizing something, right? So you can find out what's going to come next. Okay, well, we're kind of coming towards our close, and we've just got a few just kind of quicker questions to end with. Yeah, to end with.
So I mean, you have been wonderfully candid in sharing these stories and feelings, and how are you feeling right now about the scope of our conversation and where we've landed? Yeah.
It's coming in, but
yeah.
So thank you.
Cool.
It actually feels a bit lighter.
Mm.
So because I remember when I first came, I felt like my back and whatnot, and like So yeah, I think maybe that's.
I got a sense of something. I got a sense of that partway through that something was kind of moving. Yeah, great. So now we got you feeling good. I get to ask you, what are you most worried about? So in this, just kind of keeping it in the kind of 6 to 8 weeks period that you're going to start to commit to some of these changes, what are you worried about getting in the way of that?
Mm-hmm.
Self and going back into being in my comfort zone instead of embracing the uncomfortable comfort, or the what is next. And I think I think that's what I'm worried about, that I want to do it, but then I might disappoint myself. But I actually, whilst I'm saying that, I have a feeling that I'm not gonna. I don't know why. Maybe because it's been too long. Yeah.
Well, it's becoming less comfortable as well. So I think when you notice yourself sitting in that uncomfortable, it's not particularly attractive to you anymore, right? You're more likely to be like, no.
Yeah.
Which is good. Yeah.
So I get to ask the fun question, which is, with these next 6 weeks of experimentation and like dropping down some obligation, experiencing more of the joy and the play and the spaciousness and the pleasure through dance and the walks in the woods, what are you most excited about?
Dancing. the joy of dancing. I don't know, it's just when the music goes and you start dancing, I just cannot stop smiling. So
that sounds
like
great.
when I dance, I'm always smiling. That's how my husband met me, actually. Dancing. So
oh wow.
Yeah. So
okay.
I am a bit worried about the pain afterwards, but I'm hopeful that it's gonna become less. And I have been to an osteopath, so I might actually, he's a friend of mine, I might ask him again. So
yeah, definitely do take care when engaging. Okay, I mean, my question is, what's the first step you're going to do after this call? But I have a feeling it's going to be something about researching salsa schools.
But just so we have it on the record, so in 6 weeks' time we can be like, well, we did have a first step. What is the first step you think you'll take after we...
Well,
finished.
Well, after we finish, I'm gonna first say goodnight to my daughter and read her book, and then I'm gonna
Nice.
tell my guy about this, and I think we're gonna together go look for school. So, yeah.
And will you be dancing together in salsa?
No, because we have different levels, and I think if we have a babysitter, yes, but I think that doesn't matter because he has other things he loves.
Yeah.
So
I kind of want you to
Yeah.
leave him at home
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, go out and explore for yourself. Yeah.
yeah,
Not that we're
Yeah.
biased in any way at all.
yeah, yeah. So I'll be doing it.
Lovely.
Great. Well, that sounds great. Well,
Yeah.
we would love to kind of leave you on that positive note and check in with you, like we said, in 6 to 8 weeks or something, and see how you're getting on and what's happening.
Yes,
Does that sound good?
I'd love to, and thank you. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Athene. It's been
Yeah.
You came right along all the way. With all
Yeah.
the questions went right.
Like
right
a
to the
beautiful
source.
storm just like sweeping out into this expansive sea.
It's great.
Well, for me, I'm having quite different. But
I'm
it's
happy
been
with
joy.
anything so long as I don't have to dance. You two can do all the dancing.
I'll come dance with you. I love salsa.
You're
So
welcome.
much fun. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Sorry. I just. Well, we'll have to cut it. I don't know whether to cut it out or not, but we haven't really firmed up to like how we actually end. Like, do we say
That's
thank you for
true.
taking the time to show up? And I was just thinking, okay, how do we? Because what we do. What we do is we say goodbye, but then we carry on recording to say goodbye properly, so it's not like in the podcast. So I would think my face was looking like, so do we say thank you for taking the time to show up?
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fine.
kind of ruined the whole ending.
It hasn't. This is naturalistic. I mean, it's what you see is what you get with us
Right.
for the most part.
Thank you for taking the time to show up, Athene. It's been lovely to chat with you today.
It's lovely being here.
Thank you.